Everybody, welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing 3 watches, kind of comparing them, tell you why I settled on the one that I settled, in hopes that it might be able to help you if you're kind of looking for something in this latest generation of watches and you're into fitness, but you also want something that's a nice smartwatch. All right, so the 3 watches that we'll be looking at today is on the left here. This is the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. So it is still the flagship watch, even with the 6 coming out. They have not released a new Pro. Next to that, we have the Garmin Epix. This is the Gen 2 Pro Sapphire 51mm. So it's the latest, greatest big dog from Garmin. And then next to it, we have its brother. This is the Fenix 7X Pro Solar Sapphire 51mm. Again, it's the big dog. It's the best one as far as the Fenix line. Okay, so my usage for the watch is something that I can wear daily, and a job that I do a lot of automotive work, if you're familiar with the channel. So I need something that is strong as possible. And the whole screensaver and case game for watches is not really that appealing to me. So these all 3 have a titanium case, and all 3 have a sapphire display. So these are prerequisites for me. So normally I wouldn't maybe need, you're gonna say, why do you need all the features of these 2 Garmin watches? Well, I don't, but they're the only ones that I can get with a titanium case and a sapphire display. So that automatically puts them in that league. And then here, we're talking way less than half the cost of one of these, we have the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. In this category, it's kind of like the Apple Watch Ultra that you can get as well. But I am a Google Samsung user, so the Apple Watch isn't even something that I'm willing to try out. All right, so it's important to talk about a little bit of history. So for years, I've been rocking my Garmin Fenix 3 HR, and I used it for, back when I was running more, even ran a half marathon with this, and basically I've had this for years. It's a very old watch. It finally gave the ghost. I was running on the treadmill a couple weeks ago, and something happened where it just stopped recording. So I wanted to see how tough the watch was. And it was apparent that the hardware had failed. The battery wasn't really lasting anymore. So I tried to kind of destroy the watch and just show you how strong the screen is. Inside the watch broke, but the Sapphire has no scratches on it from all these years of abuse. So I used that one on and off exercise. A few years ago, this became my daily driver. This was my Garmin Instinct Solar, and very good watch. It's worked very well for me. We're talking 25 days of battery life while getting smart notifications on the watch. It's been a great watch. But with all these new watches coming out, I wanted something that could be a little bit more of a smartwatch. So this is where this Samsung Galaxy Watch came into the picture. So I was waiting for the 6 to come out, and they were supposed to do, a release in July and kind of talk about all the new watches. And I was disappointed because Samsung only came out with the 6, which is a very incremental update, but it's not the Pro model. It's just, they went back to the rotating bezel, which a lot of people like, and the smaller regular 6. But they left the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. This is still their flagship device. Now, so far in my experience, they claim 80 hours of battery life. I would say that's pretty accurate. In fact, it's come a long way. I haven't had a true smartwatch in years, and this thing really does get through at least a couple of days with moderate activity. Now, if you're watching videos on your watch, or you're taking a bunch of calls, or you're on it nonstop, you're going to burn through the battery a lot quicker. But for what most of us use one of these watches for is to check, maybe respond to some texts, maybe to look at the weather, something like that real quick. This thing will last a long time. So obviously, I've been using this Instinct for a long time. So that brought me to the Garmin watches. I had my 3HR, I really, the MIP display, it's supposedly been improved. And honestly, the feature that really put it over the edge versus just buying like an older, like Garmin 6, was the flashlight. I mean, that's just a really neat feature. I'm not getting any younger, and the older I get, the harder it is to see in the dark, and it would just really be neat to always have a flashlight on my wrist. So to tell the whole story, like I said, I got this one first. I went for a run on a treadmill. I do a lot of treadmill running, and it was actually, at first, it was dead accurate. And the faster I would go on the treadmill, the watch kept getting further and further behind. So I thought, surely there's a way to calibrate that. Turns out, nope, no way to calibrate it. It's a huge feature that's lacking on this watch. So I said, okay, I need to go back to Garmin and see what the different offerings are from Garmin, and maybe while I can still return this, explore some of the options. So then I bought this watch here, the Fenix, because I always had the 3HR, the MIP display is nice outdoors where it's really bright. This thing really brightens up and looks good. And you know what? I tried this for about a week, different watch faces, and it was good. But I kept wondering if I made the right decision by not going with the Epix, because essentially this new Epix Gen 2 and this Fenix, they both have the flashlights now. They're the exact same watch, except this has the really nice Amoled display, while this has the MIP display. And it's been a long time that Garmin has like ruled the kingdom because of having the better, more efficient display on their watches, which, you know, you could go 30 plus days without charging this, depending on how much you're doing. But I thought, okay, I need to look at the Epix too. And man, I'm telling you, between these two watches, it's hands down the Epix Gen 2. You're only going to get about 11 to 12 days in smartwatch mode if you have the always on display. So that's what the always on display looks like. It's still pretty bright, as you can see. Yeah, you still go 11 days like that. Who can't charge their watch every 11 days? I mean, it's just such a big difference if you look at these two watches. I'm not going to compare everything because there's a bunch of videos like that on YouTube of people comparing the watches, but there's just, I mean, only in the brightest of sun where it's, this display has to work harder for you to see it, and this one really shines. But for 95% of what we're doing, this watch, hands down, all day long, that immediately takes this one out of the picture for me. So now, here we are between this very expensive Garmin watch and this, got it on sale for $379 Samsung. So again, what threw me off the trail and brought me back to Garmin for a minute was the fact that there was no way to calibrate my treadmill runs, and it's important to me since I run on the treadmill a lot. So I got this one. Now this and any other Garmin watch, very easy to do. After you run on the treadmill, there is a calibrate option, and if you just go run outdoors with GPS on multiple runs, it learns your stride and how much distance you would cover normally, you know, by your stride, and then it applies that to when you run indoors on the treadmill. So it tries to keep it accurate. Even though it may not exactly match it on the treadmill screen, it's more realistic to what you would actually be running. Again, this one doesn't do that. Now, as far as comparing outdoor runs, so I took all of these watches, and if you would have come by and saw me running at the track, you would have thought I was crazy because I had 2 watches on each arm at one point. So I wanted to get a baseline comparison. So the one thing I noticed right away is that these 2 watches had the same performance, and they were actually a little bit off on GPS. I just went to a high school track, quarter-mile track, very accurate place to test the GPS functionality. And these do have a bunch of new features, including multi-band GPS, where they use all the different satellite networks that are in the world. So I was kind of surprised that these were not doing that well compared to these two cheaper watches here. And then I realized the way I was able to basically fix that was to turn it to where in the settings there's smart mode, and I changed it to every second. So it's actually getting the GPS position every second. So that way it would catch all those little turns when I'm on the track and plot it out accurately. But I do have to say that considering there was some earlier reviews of the 5 Pro that mentioned GPS problems, I will say that this was spot on. It was exact. It was better than these at first, right out of the box on the outdoor track. Really impressive GPS. Again, I ran with all of these, and out of all of them, they all were within like 0.01, 0.02 of a mile. So it's not like we're way off here. I would say that any one of these watches, and this isn't really about this, but would be a good choice for outdoor running. Where the new Garmin's really shine is if you run in terrains where it's partially shaded or there's like a rock face nearby where you're not having a completely full view of the sky. These can use many more satellite systems, and you'd have a much better chance of getting an accurate plot. So I used to run at this place not too far from home where there was a lot of rock formations, and it would really throw off my Garmin 3HR, where there'd be points where the GPS just didn't make sense, and that would affect how many miles it would show on the display. Whereas these do a really good job in that same instance. All right, so had I never had this for a couple weeks, I probably would have just went on with life using the Epix 2. Again, I was used to the way notifications come in on here. It's almost the exact same thing on here, except there's more real estate. It's very important to understand, though, if you're considering one of these watches, these are not smartwatches. So that's the biggest takeaway, I think, from this video. If you're watching, these are not smartwatches. They're truly, Garmin is not there yet. The closest thing that Garmin has to a smartwatch is the Venue 2 Plus. And I tried that watch also. It still didn't have a keyboard that you could respond to someone sending you a text. You could use Google Assistant to make calls. It did have a microphone and a speaker, so you could take calls on it. But as far as the other interactions, I mean, that you maybe want with like an Apple Watch or a Galaxy Watch, where, I mean, not that I would ever use it, but I can literally watch YouTube on a web browser window on this watch. I mean, there's so much it can do. It's insane. They all support, you know, contactless payment. That's not an issue. They all get basic notifications. So there's a few things missing from the Garmin that I don't really understand why they're missing. So these do have touchscreens now. So there's no reason that Garmin should not have a keyboard that you can respond to a text message. So obviously there's no microphone, there's no speaker, there's just a beeper in the Garmin watches. This has a microphone and a speaker. So I can take calls on this if I want to. That's not really the way I prefer to take a call. But if your phone is left in the other room and you're on Wi-Fi and I'm in range and I don't even have the LTE version, I will get my calls and texts on my watch. No problem. So with these, obviously you don't have that. It will show you that someone's calling. Then, you know, first world problems, you're going to dig in your pocket and get your phone out. It will show you the text, and then you can do a quick reply, and you can use either the touch screen or press a button to select it, but it's only the pre-canned replies. So just like my instinct, which I got along with a long time, I put in pretty much anything I thought that I would ever need to respond to a quick text in here. I could scroll through it and hit send, and it would send the reply. Maybe it's my fault for not researching it more, but I thought since this had a touchscreen and it does have a keyboard in some of the internal use applications, I thought for sure I'd be able to respond to a text on a keyboard on here. Nope, not at all. So still very limited smartwatch functionality. So what I will say is if you truly want a smartwatch, Garmin is not there yet. they're so close. And it could just be, I mean, obviously with iPhone does not allow anything. So even if you do use one of these with an iPhone, you're lucky that you can even read the text. Google and Samsung in the Android platform are a lot more open, and there's a lot more you can do even with these watches. So it could just be the fact that, you know, Samsung and Apple will just say do not want to allow this third-party Garmin to have the same amount of interaction. But I don't necessarily think that's true. I think Garmin could do better. But obviously Garmin is focused on, this is a sports watch company. This is not meant to be a smartwatch. So they make some other watches, like I said, the Venue 2 Plus, that have very good battery life and do have some smartwatch functionality. They need to build on that. I mean, if there was an Epix 3 that had some true smartwatch functionality, like the ability to actually reply to a text, maybe have some better app support for some other apps. I'm not even saying I need to be able to make a phone call in here. But yeah, it would be good to have a speaker and a microphone and be able to do that. That's all definitely a thing that they could do, even though it's going to cost you a little bit more battery. I mean, obviously Garmin has moved to the point where, again, you can get 11 to 30 days on an AMOLED screen. So we're getting there, but we're just not quite there. For the cost of these and how expensive they are, to me, it's just not worth it. So what I've decided that I'm going to do that's going to work out great for me is I'm just going to use this as my daily driver. The Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. If I want to run outside, I can use this. It's great. It does everything you would imagine that a great smartwatch can do, including really good sleep tracking once I got used to it. So that's the main thing that I always liked about the Garmin, was the ecosystem. Once you get used to the app on your phone and the way it displays all the information, Samsung Health isn't quite as intuitive, but it's not bad, and I'm getting used to it. And it's just not worth the money that these cost, in my opinion, for what I need to do. Now, if you're like an extreme athlete and you just want to see who's sending you a text all day long, hands down, these are the best sport watches you can get. But Samsung's really doing a good job of injecting themselves into the sports watch kind of arena with the Galaxy 5 Pro. Again, it does have a full suite of fitness apps. And this is not really a review of this. It's just to show you that there's a bunch of stuff you can do just like you could do on one of these watches. So for those of us who are just more into like normal exercise, this watch will suffice for the most part. But my treadmill issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wear this watch when I run on the treadmill. I already have it. It's cheaper. I guess if I need to do serious exercise type stuff, it's not going to kill me to have to wear a different watch. It will still report to all my other apps and, you know, keep track of it. So, daily driver when I'm on the treadmill. Fortunately, these are going back. I do really, again, love the look of this Epix Gen 2. It really is a great watch. Honestly, the flashlight alone, that's the thing I'm going to miss the most. I mean, that's awesome. You can even make it red. These do have a really neat redshift mode as well. And again, this is not really a review video on this particular model, but when you put it in redshift mode, it turns everything red. And you can have it automatically do that in the evening. And then when it's in sleep mode, the display will be off. And if you hit the light button, it'll just have a small time window and it'll be red like this. That way it won't interrupt your sleep. But again, this watch also has a really good sleep mode. So on this watch, this is basically what it looks like at night. The display is off. There's nothing on it. If you click a button, it'll just show you the time and it's very dim in bedtime mode. So it works very good. And again, that's all automatic. So one last thing I'll say, the big draw to Garmin is obviously the battery life. So, you know, with these smartwatches, traditionally, it's every day, it's on the charger. Every night, it's on the charger. Sleep tracking is really important to me. So I need to be able to wear it all night and all day and somehow have the battery charged somewhere in there. So what I found that works is if, let's say, Sunday night, I make sure this is charged up to 100%. Put it on before I go to bed. I'm good all night, all day Monday, or I should say, get in the shower Monday morning, drop this on the included fast charger. In the 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes it takes for me to take a shower and get ready in the morning, this is charged back up enough to where I have no problem getting through the day, through the next night, do the same thing the next morning. Drop this one on the fast charger when I'm in the shower, and I will get through the week just fine with just that little bit. That 15 minutes of charging is enough to make this thing jump way up and keep it going on a daily basis. Because that's the only time I take my watch off, is when I'm in the shower. So it was really important to me to have enough battery life to where I can make that happen. Otherwise, I just would have sacrificed all the smartwatch features and kept going with this. So isn't it great that I have this dilemma, and it took me a really long time to decide which one I wanted to keep and how I wanted to go about it. Again, if they would just fix that treadmill thing, this would be almost perfect. I mean, even maybe just a little more battery and it'd be even better. So we'll see if this gets updated to the latest OS. Maybe there'll be a little bit more energy conservation. It'll be even better. It's not bad as it is, though. Again, I've had this running for, it was on all night, and I went for a long run with GPS this morning, and it's only down to 75%. So again, my old Gear S2, I mean, we've come a long way from those days. So go ahead and wrap this up. So like I said, this one's kind of out for me. If you're kind of considering buying one of these two, unless extreme battery life, like you really just don't want to charge your watch unless about once a month, we're going to get rid of that one. We're going to say the Garmin Epix Gen 2, the big one, the 51 millimeter with the large battery. This is the watch if you're just into the extreme sports and you can get by with just having your notifications shown to you on the screen, maybe a simple quick reply to a text all day long, and it's worth the money. But if you need a little bit more of a smartwatch that can still do some sports tracking, like in my case, I'm going to have to say that the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro is where it's at. So hopefully that video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below. I'm sure there's something I left out. Again, this wasn't really a full review video of each watch. I just wanted to kind of talk about my situation, because I think probably a lot of you out there watching are in the similar situation about which watch you want and whether it's worth all the extra money to get these new Garmin flagship devices. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds, and maybe I'll be back to Garmin full-time sometime soon, but the way things look with the way they release watches, it won't be until probably later in 2024 or even 25 before we see maybe what I'm looking for. All right, thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll see you later.